are not familiar and want to know something. I don't know if he wants to go through all that, but maybe a little short one. But let's just welcome him, Bob Shultz from We the People Foundation.
You have to go. Who has to go? Okay, how can you get possession?
Why is it?
No.
No.
Even if you don't, you have to.
Thank you all very much for coming. It's good to be back. Thank you, Ron, for opening up the facility again. You're welcome. This might be my fourth or fifth time here over the years. Pretty important issue, I think, to be most important in my life. I've been addressing government wrongdoing for a long time, but this project that we're embarking on now is hands down the most serious and important of them all. Our Constitution, our republic, is, I don't have to tell patriots in this crowd that have been aware of what has been happening in the country, but the republic is in danger. It's hanging, the Constitution is hanging by a thread. There are people running in government that seem to be bent on transitioning our constitutional republic to a democracy. Everything is getting couched in political terms, like what's going on over somebody else. Is what people like to believe. So what we're going to do is talk a little bit about what the Constitution is, what it isn't, and what the founders did when they found themselves in a very similar situation. And what they did to hold the government accountable, what they tried to do before they eventually accepted it. And then what I think we have to do I see no other choice. I've been doing this kind of work for a long time, and we've been attempting to hold the government accountable by constitutional means, non-violent means, using the right to petition clause provision, which we find in both our state and federal constitutions. So just in a nutshell, I don't have to tell you all, I'm sure. The Constitution is a set of principles. What I'm holding here is put out by the Cato Institute. It's got the Declaration of Independence, which is the Charter, and the Constitution, which is the Bible. So, those are the founding documents. By the terms of these documents, we, the people, have set up the government. By the terms of these documents, we have enabled the government to do its job, but we've also heavily prohibited and restricted the government from doing other things. And so this Constitution is a set of principles to govern the government. We're not mentioned except a few people adopt it. And it's all that stands between us and total tyranny and despotism. What I'm going to do is ask. We've got a couple of PowerPoint presentations to facilitate the discussion. The first one of these is on our website now. If you want to know more about us and the foundation, it's all in this corporate brochure that we have. If you'd like some more of these, let me know. I have plenty of them in demand. This is the first of meetings across the country. We're in a different city every day now. And we have plenty of these on hand. They're not, obviously, not to be easily discarded. We put a lot of effort into these, a lot of expense, and we pay royalties, as you'll see, on some of those graphics that are included. So that tells you pretty much who we are. If you have questions about my personal background and what I've been doing, just play the time for questions and answers. We can do there. Those don't already know. All right, what we're going to do is begin first with a PowerPoint presentation that is already on our website, and then we're going to switch to a PowerPoint presentation that Hank put together for this tour that we're on. A little bit of overlap, but we'll get through these pretty quickly. You'll get a pretty good idea of the project that we're embarking on, is Continental Congress, not to be confused with a Constitutional Convention. They are different things entirely. People are confusing them. Continental Congress first one, the founders, after the French and Indian War ended in 1763, and the French are out here. The English are left with a standing armies elsewhere around the world. They ruled the seas, they're the most powerful government on the face of the earth, and they decided to treat the early Americans differently than they treated the other side of the ocean. And our people, Jefferson in particular, would submit petitions for redress of grievances to the government. And as the Declaration explains, their repeated petitions were answered only with repeated injuries. And that eventually caused them to separate. But what they did back in 1774, they didn't decide to separate. They decided to send a few delegates representing the 13 colonies to Philadelphia, to Independence Hall, just to talk about those grievances that were building up, that they were filing with the government, and the government was not responsible. So they got together to talk about that and to decide on a course of action. That's all they did. That's all they decided to do when they headed out to Philadelphia. And it was only during the course of that Congress, particularly with the persistence of Taphouse, that eventually they decided to separate to a choice, but to separate.
Could you hold the microphone a little closer so we can get on?
Yes, okay. Good idea.
Much better.
Thank you. So, and we find ourselves in the same position. We have been, those of you who are familiar with our organization, I'm sure many of you have been petitioning your government in one way or another for a redress of grievances, particularly grievances dealing with a violation of your state or federal constitutions, and maybe not happy with the response you got. Well, we as an organization, me in particular, have been petitioning our government intelligently, rationally, professionally. Our federal government, for 20 years I did that with some measure of success, but in the late 90s I began to petition the federal government because of its violations of the Constitution. Maybe not expecting the relief we were asking for, but clearly setting out to establish a record, just as the founders did. They were justified in taking the action they did because they could point to a record of repeated infringements on their rights and their repeated attempts for redress or remedy, redress means remedy, and government's abuse of them, answering their petitions only with repeated injuries, as the Declaration of Independence explains. So we set out some years ago and have been petitioning with the assistance of constitutional scholars in a very professional, intelligent, rational. We have been submitting either to the petitioning either the judiciary or members of the executive and legislative branches directly, and without a response, clearly without a responsive response. And so we have reached this point where we think we need to bring up to 3 people from all of the 50 states together in Philadelphia, not at Independence Hall, but they have a new facility, a few years old, called Constitution Center, on the other side of the Liberty Bell. It now sits between the Constitution Center and Independence Hall, to discuss these violations of our Constitution, our repeated attempts for remedy to these grievances, government's continued abuse, their deaf ear that they've turned to this, and then settle on a course of action. But at the same time, this is key, at the same time communicating back to the people in their states through state websites, which would become the sort of the pot-belly stove around which people will gather, discussion boards and chat rooms and so forth. These delegates in Philadelphia will populate their state websites. They have the responsibility of doing that every day. Those people back home will know what these delegates have been discussing, what they've been debating, what they've been deciding, and then when they settle on a course of action, hopefully there'll be 5% of the population that is properly up to speed and willing to collectively collective and actually put a collective foot down against the Taphouse department. So with that as an introduction, Hank, if you could, we'll run through these pretty quickly to give you some basic grounding in some of the principles that are involved here.